Well, hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's new episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and a lot of missing friends. As you can see, we have three people here. Normally, we have a ton more. Everborn Saga is handling some work stuff. We have two people that have their spouses out that are down. Tempest Sun. Oh yeah, Everborn Saga is here. Well, there you go.
No, I'm still doing the work stuff, but I'm here.
Okay.
I'm jumping back and forth.
All right, go do your thing, brother. Go do your thing. Tempest Son, his wife isn't feeling good, so he obviously has to take care of the kids. And of course, the Canadian one, the loudest voice in the room, Mag, is his wife is ill as well, so he's wrangling the kids. And of course, we wish their ladies a very speedy recovery. Wandering Dutch is going to be here momentarily, and I did throw out the bat signal for a few people. But listen, even if it's just the four of us, it just means that you're going to get to hear more of who we have here, and we have an incredible show.
Or slander.
Or slander. That's right. Or slander. There it is. Listening. You're going to get that. He's going to pop in every second. But listen, we have two monster topics that we're going to get right into. The first one is going to be the new rumor that popped up today that Sony is going to be having their state of play for their first big event in February, very similar to what we saw happen in 2020 and 2021. So there are some people that think that in fact is going to happen. And we're going to then follow that up and segue into what does Microsoft need to do? Do they need to respond after we just got the Ubisoft Plus announcement plus Extraction? Are we going to get the rumored big announcement come the end of January or the beginning of February? I don't know, but we're going to get into that. And of course, the main crux of today's conversation comes at a very, very subjective topic, one that I don't think is going to be a big deal, and that is that we got word that Square Enix is looking to make PlayStation their source for their mainstream Final Fantasy games. A lot of people are pissed off about that. Personally, I got a big reason why you shouldn't be. But let's get into the panel, and we'll start first with our very special guest, all the way from the Xbox era, on loan once again. One Bad Mother. What's going on, brother? How you feeling?
I am feeling good, guys. Thanks for leaving the door open in the back again, or somebody left it open. I always appreciate coming on here. And yeah, I think it's the beginning of the year, and usually, news and topics are light, but I feel like there's a lot of interesting things going on right now. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to having some of these conversations with you guys.
Well, we're glad to have you. I know we got you for about until about an hour and 45 minutes before you got.
Actually, I can go a little bit longer now. So
okay. All right. So even better, yeah. Folks, just be prepared for a 2-hour show. That's what we're pushing for, because a lot of people have to, bounce out on time. So we're gonna give you a good show. You're gonna have a lot of fun. It's gonna be a great conversation. Big shout out to the boss mod Lethal Papa, once again keeping the streets safe from these knuckleheads known as the interweb. Big shout out to you, Lethal. Thank you for being here, and of course modern the show as usual. But Kay Asante, this week you guys are back and you got some new wares to show off. Hopefully that's going to go very well for the Gaming Circle podcast. How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great, man. It's good to see all the friendly faces back in the chat, and OBM back in the spot. We don't even have to welcome you anymore. What's going on, bro? How you doing? You just shows up. It's all good, Yes. No, this week should be interesting. We're coming back to the Gaming Circle, working on a few little upgrades here and there. Got some logo things going on. Got some, changing things around a bit, trying to have a fresh new look for 2022. So it should be fun. Y'all, those who follow me on Twitter might start seeing me pushing that stuff out a little bit more to tell you what's about to happen. But that will be this Saturday. But I'm here for today's conversation. I'm looking forward to it. So yes, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, once we get Wandering Dutch and everyone in here, it definitely should be a party for sure. But listen, folks, let's get right into it.
I'm here now. Okay. I'm right here.
he ain't going nowhere. He's right here.
Everborn Saga, man. How the heck are you? We know that you've been super, super busy. We're happy to have you.
Yes. Busy. Got something very big in the works. Hopefully, something to announce in a couple of weeks. Fingers crossed. Boom, you know what it is.
I do.
So do you. You might know too, OBM. But anyway, we'll see soon. And then that's all I'm gonna say about that. But exciting times. That's all I want to say.
This man over here.
Well, you know what? Let's get into the rumor that popped up early on the socials this afternoon. We know that many fans of Sony felt a bit abandoned in the second half of 2021 for a lot of reasons.
You said abandoned. I see what you did there.
Oh, you like that, right?
You know, with the okay.
But the thing is this, apparently they look like they're following the playbook that they wrote and should be releasing a state of play led by, and this is again, folks, it's just a rumor, by the WB Hogwarts game that's supposed to be dropping this year, Hogwarts Legacy, and that's supposed to be a monster RPG. And if in fact that is the case, that means that they did secure the marketing rights for said game. That would be pretty big. I don't think it is a timed exclusive. I don't think they were able to lock that down simply because I don't think there's enough PlayStation 5s in the wild to warrant WB to push that behind one console when Microsoft has found a way to allow its players to play the next gen version on a multitude of consoles, going all the way back to the Xbox One. This is something that Sony has not done, and I don't know if I don't know. Is it been confirmed that it's next gen only, or is it going to be?
Well, before we ask that question, Boom, let me ask you a question. Are we is this a PlayStation insider that has told you they knew when a state of play was coming?
No, this is simply a rumor that they got word, and I say they because again I don't know who the people are, that this in fact could happen because it's following the same pattern that they have done in previous years. 2020 in February there's a state of play, and of course in 2021 in February there was another state of play, and it's Sony's way of kind of trying to grab the the narrative early in said year. It wouldn't surprise me because quite frankly they have been really dead drop quiet, right? Second half of the year seemed to be dominated by Microsoft, and they continued into 2022 with a very good case something.
I would just like to put in there, the question was asked on what platforms it would be released, whether it's rumored to change or not. As of December 28th, 2021, it will be playable on next gen and current gen and past gen as well as PC.
Okay, so then it's going to be available for everybody.
The only one that's missing is Switch, obviously.
Okay, that makes sense. But
they're spending a lot of money on this thing. I doubt they'd want to limit it to current gen at this stage in the life cycle.
It's possible.
So forget about exclusive. They're not. I think they want as many people to play this as possible because it can be a big time new franchise for them.
Well, you know what? Let's use the hypothetical angle here. We don't have word from Sony, right? We are still early in the year, right? Today's only, I believe, the 10th. So we're only through the first third of January. We still have 2/3 of the month left. Usually we start to hear about this around the 20th, the 22nd, somewhere around there, that there's going to be a state of play, potentially, maybe closer to the end of the month. But we know that Horizon Forbidden West is coming, right? That's coming in February. I don't necessarily know if they need to show it. They dropped another trailer, which, by the way, looked amazing. But are they going to do a state of play that is going to give us more Horizon? I would feel a little like
that'd be overkill. No,
absolutely overkill. I think we've seen enough of it. I don't want to see any more because I want to experience.
They already have
everything.
my money. At this point, I just want the whole game.
But they could do a state of play with God of War, right?
So I mean, didn't they do something similar with Deathloop though? Like, weren't people kind of even
over it by the time?
Like saying that they've done enough of it. I do think we're starting to see a pattern, and I even feel like if I was like And I don't remember. I don't know who originated the rumor, so it could be from somebody legitimate. But I feel like if I was going to be one of those guys that was just going to call a shot to try to become an insider, one of those guys. February makes a lot of sense for Sony because their pattern really is to when they got a big IP, they do seem to try to center their messaging around whatever the next big IP is, and I feel like it's kind of becoming their pattern now, and it does make sense, I think, for them to do one more huge push. I mean, Horizon's a game that's been in development. What is it? 5 years? It's been in development a long time. It's one of the biggest. It's one of their new tentpole IPs. This is going to be one of their biggest things of the year, especially, if God of War for whatever reason, gets delayed. I'm not saying it will, but if that happens, this will probably be the biggest podcast. It will probably be the biggest, launch game of the year. So I guess if I'm in the front offices of Sony, and I'm not, obviously, but if I was, maybe I do lean into these, and I continue to use them as a centerpiece, not only to kind of build up the hype for this game before it's going to launch, but also that now you can bring in some other things along with it. And so, maybe they do pair it with like a Hogwarts or, and then Sifu and some other things like that, and kind of build up the mind share of those games as well. And actually, I don't think there's anything wrong with that strategy, to be honest. I think somewhere down the road, I don't think Microsoft's going to try to come out with a show in February, but I feel like it's a good template if you do have big tentpole IPs coming out every 3, 4, or 5 months, to instead of having a regular cadence of shows, build up the rest of the portfolio, the rest of the exclusives or big games or whatever they're going to come out around whatever that big exclusive is. So it makes a lot of sense to me. I don't see anything illogical about another Horizon focus, but maybe bringing in some other things with it.
Yeah, I mean, Sifu sounds like that'd be a good one. I'm looking forward to that. For me, that's a by day one. But let me just give you guys the heads up of where this originally came from, because I know a lot of people in the chat are saying, "Is this just somebody that was on a train and just threw a piece of paper out that says Sony PlayStation?" No.
I mean, that sounds like all the insiders for so far.
I mean, the original story was pulled. I pulled it from GamesRadar.com. And they were posting. Obviously, they wrote the article about it, but the original poster comes the way of Tom Henderson.
Now, okay. Tom's good. Yeah.
Tom is, like I said, I don't know him personally, but I followed his work for a bit. Yeah. He has 122.3 thousand followers. He is obviously someone that tweets about video games. He's a freelancer writer at various sites. Okay. That's his MO. So I don't think he does these things for clout. He has more than enough followers, and I trust. I've followed his work before, so Tom Henderson did in fact, post this, and what he said very simply was the current rumor is that the next Sony event looks like it could be in February based on this month's media events and past PlayStation dates. So. I don't know where he doesn't specifically say, where he got his information, but like the guy is legit, and obviously coming from OBM, we know that he is. The thing is this, and I'll go directly to Keisante. Keisante, look, Sony finds themselves in a very unique position in the gaming world. And I say that because this is an entity in gaming that really gave it to Microsoft last gen. I mean, they put it on them, so to speak.
Pause.
And yes, and pause indeed. But here is the thing, Keisante. They're not in that position anymore. They are on the ropes. They're on the defensive because Microsoft is taking back the streets in their own way. Do they need this event, and what do they have to show?
So I will say first and foremost, you're absolutely right. That what was is not necessarily what is anymore, and the unique thing about generations is when the new generation comes, it's almost like even though the mind share is still with the winner, all bets are off, and the potential for reestablishing what you were, what you are, fixing mistakes are all potentially available. And obviously Microsoft has made very good use of that this year, right? This time around. So far, the series consoles are gangbusters. People are really liking what they're seeing and how these folks are cultivating more customers. So it's been going great for them. But I will say one thing we've seen, and this is nothing new that we haven't said on this show before, it's very cyclical, this stuff. When you do great last time, you get a little cocky and then you miss a step and then the other one takes over. And, same thing, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360 to Xbox One, right? They get cocky. So when the time comes and maybe you're behind the 8 ball a bit, you're still like, nah, man, I'm the boss in here. This is mine. You know what I'm saying? To the point where sometimes they miss a step when they shouldn't. So I actually saw this news and I wasn't surprised because the logic behind it makes perfect sense, right? They're not out there trying to keep people on their toes, right? If there's a good tried and true formula, they use it, right? And there's a lot of evidence that suggests that during this time, they did it last year, they did it the year before, that they show some stuff, right? So the fact that they're showing something this time around, I'm not surprised. And as far as Horizon is concerned, now this will be a very unpopular opinion. When Horizon first came out and folks were basically making that choice of Horizon versus Breath of the Wild, I chose Horizon. Even though Breath of the Wild had better traversal, I still chose Horizon because I love that game. I will always love. Yes, I did.
I was waiting for Everborn.
Oh yeah, I knew this. I knew as soon as I said that the camera would come
get
on.
along, sir.
I love not to say the Breath of the Wild. No, not to say the Breath of the Wild.
That's how you bring Everborn back, by the way.
Oh yeah, of course. You say that and then you say something slanderous.
All you have
Sonic.
to do is say Zelda slander, and he
or something slanderous about Sonic, and then he pops up. You say it 3 times, he just shows up.
I'm like the Candyman.
I knew it. I knew you were going to say that.
But when that game first came out, because of graphics, because of just immersion, I chose that before I ended up playing Breath of the Wild, and I prayed the hell out of Breath of the Wild. I even have the DLC and all of that. But I chose because at first I was playing both of them at once, and you can't play both of them at once because then impossible. One shows its other's flaws and vice versa. I ended up playing Horizon, first, and I've actually rebought Horizon and been playing it on PC.
That's because you knew what would happen if you played Breath of the Wild. You would have realized some things.
Like I said, I played Breath of the Wild. Shut your mouth. Anyway, anyway. So
but did you
I say this
play? No, just keep going.
I say this to say I am in the camp of Horizon. I'm there for it day one. I already have the crazy the room for the crazy statue is going to be right there. The big mammoth, the woolly mammoth, is coming home. I bought the $200 and whatever version that's out there. So I'm there for it. But they need to show us more, right? Because that's where you're right, Boom, right? Back in the day, they had all the room to move they wanted. They had these events at the time that they wanted to have them, which is not surprising. They showed us what they wanted to show us because they had all the room to maneuver. Nintendo's over there doing the Nintendo thing, and they will always do the Nintendo thing, right? Which is fine. And I actually think that they're kind of trying to take a bit of a page from Nintendo's book. When Breath of the Wild was first coming out, the whole E3 presentation was nothing but Breath of the Wild. You saw nothing else. Yeah,
right. They built the whole stage around it.
Exactly. So I think like Nintendo, that PlayStation is going, look, our franchises are big enough that when we have that big guy, that really big AAA franchise, we need to show all aspects of this one and get people excited about this one. But like you're correctly pointing out, Boom, they are no longer in a position where they can breathe anymore. Microsoft Xbox is at the throat. Like they're everywhere. They're on all aspects of it. Every week, when under normal circumstances you'd wait for the next big news event to drop, right? The gaming news event. They're on Twitter dropping bombs left and right. They've already announced some Ubisoft stuff.
There's a reason you look forward to Mondays.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's Microsoft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mondays are
and Microsoft they have tiered their news to go, well, this is enough for just a hit for the Twitter and the gaming streets for a couple weeks, right? Versus the big, huge, astronomical, we need an event kind of conversation. Whereas PlayStation is still only relying on that, hey, now it's time for us to speak. Here it is in February. We're going to drop all these news bombs. they cannot afford that anymore.
But let
so
me
when
ask
they
you a
do
question.
come out,
Let me ask you a question, Mr. K. Asante.
Please.
What if they only have 2 big titles for the year?
See, this is my point. This is why I said it's
so. Maybe
cyclical.
it's not
they get a little bit.
It's just because they ain't got it.
No, I doubt that it's not that they ain't got it because they're still out there being very aggressive with their money. And you know that even their third parties that they cultivate, they try to make first parties. So shout out to Square Enix, right? They try to in the mind of the consumer, hey, look at this Final Fantasy that's
16
our game.
is not coming out this year, but okay.
Well, but my point is, whenever they cultivate a third party, they try to really bring that in as a first party. So even if they don't have any first parties, I suspect they have some. That's right.
The perception of them being a first party.
Yes. So even if they don't have an actual first party, they will most likely be aggressive with their money and get a lot of folks to get attention to their third party as if it was a first party. But that idea that Everborn brings up is a concern, right? If they show up with just 2 games because we got it like that, it's not going to go over well. It just isn't.
Hold on,
and I'm a little concerned about that.
If those 2 games are Horizon and Ragnarok, if we get that this year, which we have to get it this year, right? Like, I almost feel like that's enough because those 2 games will suck the oxygen out of the air.
Well, hold on here. So let's say February, and this is a question, and I guess Everborn, you can answer this. So February, let's say they come out with Horizon and Ragnarok. They have a great showing. Now, of course, Horizon people are going to clown and say, oh, we've seen this already, even though they'll probably show you something new. Maybe they'll show you the VR version of it. They'll show you something in the Horizon universe, and they show you Ragnarok, right? They show you those 2. And then spring, shortly after, Microsoft comes and happens to show you more pieces of Avowed or more pieces of like 4, 5, 6 different.
But we're
big
still talking about. Well, we are not, but people are still talking about. Ratchet and Clank and Return.
Shout out to Fonzarelli Gaming. Welcome, good sir. I see him in the chat.
Fonzarelli, welcome, brother. Welcome.
So people are still talking about Ratchet and Clank and Returnal, and people are still running with the false premise headline that there's only releases 2 months of the year, which is not true.
Sure.
But whatever. The point is, I'm saying Sony may be still in a position, rightly or wrongly, that
to be able to get away with that stuff.
Yes.
Well, but we're not talking about
as long as they can get away with it, they will.
But we're not
the
talking
fans
about
are the customers. That's who they care about.
No, I understand, but what I'm saying to you is we're not talking about the fan base. We're not talking about the left or the right. We're talking about the middle. The people who can sway either way. And honestly, as a person who can get it from either side, pause. See what I did there?
I've trained
it's not
you well,
enough.
sir.
It's not enough. They even if they
it
come
might
with
not be
the
enough
2
for
heavy
you.
hitters.
I am saying
my point is we in the hardcore gaming streets may go, it's enough or whatever, but like as long as their competitor is very aggressive, showing a lot of very high quality stuff, and this is all a lot of ifs because we don't know when Microsoft's gonna drop something, but it is very very it is likely that they will also drop something in a relatively close amount of time. If they show a lot more, like let's say you get that Joanna Dark preview that you've been wanting for a while, let's say, and these games aren't coming out anytime soon, that's for sure, but let's say they show you something that will be very interesting to see. You know what I'm saying?
Here's the point I'm making. I'm saying the media coverage and the fan base will allow Ragnarok and Forbidden West to suck up all of the air. So we, not to us, but to the broader public, Xbox still has things to prove to that middle.
Sure, absolutely.
About, right?
They absolutely have things.
So they don't have the luxury of only showing Starfield.
That's my point. They will show. They are not going to be the ones to show up with just 2 bangers.
I understand that, but Sony doesn't have that problem. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to say something maybe a little. I don't know if it's a little unpopular, but I know when everybody goes on Twitter and thank God the Spaces thing died down because
I never jumped into one of those things. I just
but I know the classic console wars, where people like they draw like a list on a page and say who's winning. Like in the real world,
but the sales, bro.
Yeah. So we know Everborn knows exactly what the conversation.
Oh, because he was on them Twitter streets on a daily. That man,
Everborn. I do hope that over this period of time that you've been taking notes, because this is going to be a moment that we can make we can make a documentary on this, and I'm sure it would be a hit. But like when I think about
it's not notes, OBM, it's receipts.
Yeah, receipts.
No.
They will be used.
But when you think about like the history, like I remember going all the way back to early E3s when we'd jump on the forums and and argue as younger adults about who the hell won these shows. And it's funny because you think back to the biggest E3s of all time. There's usually like a handful of tentpole games that really come to mind. And I really do feel like when you think about a brand, the Sony or Microsoft, like those mega super big IPs is what people really think about. And I think Horizon could be in that category. God of War is obviously in that category. Spider-Man's in that category. And for Microsoft, it's Halo. And like this year, there's going to be more than Starfield, but Starfield's going to be what people remember this year from the Xbox standpoint. So, so when people do the, counting, this game and that game, those games that like sell 1 million, even 2 million, they really don't impact the brand. I think the way people hope and think they do, especially in the Twitter wars. I do think these 10 million, 20 million sellers are the ones that get that kind of engagement. They're massive. You'd have it's like a superstar in the NBA, right? Like if you had a choice to give up 5 good starters for one superstar, you would do that every time. Any NBA team is going to do that. And these superstar IPs is what people build their brands around. So again, like going back to like the rumor, and if I was, and I do think the source of this is legit. But if I'm Sony, yeah, I'm marketing, like I'm leveraging the hell out of Horizon. Horizon, what is it sold near almost 10 million, or was in that ballpark? For a brand new IP, and this is the second one. Usually the second one does a lot better if the first one was received well in Metacritic and everything else. And that did have a really good, did have good mind share the first time. So yeah, I to me, there's not I don't think this is as much a back and forth. This is we got to time this right, because right now nothing's moving in consoles. Like every console every Series X at least, and every PS5 that can be made is being sold. Yeah. And I think that situation's only going to we're going to probably find out it's going to get worse this year. I don't think
they're saying that we could not see a slowdown of this until 2023.
Yeah,
what'll really make it worse when the bigger the games that come out, like that's
why God of War will probably be delayed.
Right?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, right. But when we look at these highly anticipated games and people wanting to play them on these next gen consoles, I think that shortage is really only going to continue. And like you said, it's really going to be a matter of who can produce more and how many, you still have to add how many of these, how much silicon do they want to put in the data centers if you're Microsoft? What are they allocating towards the Series S? And does the Series S, shut up, Mr. K. Asante, does the Series S become the dark horse? That I'm
just literally the voice in the back of his head, and he's just he's right.
Listen, if I had to take a stab at it, I guarantee you that even right now it's 3-1, and I'm not talking about the little man is getting made 3-1, even 4-1 more.
Oh yeah, because it does not suffer from the same silicon limitations that the big
it does. It's just not as bad, but
not as much. Yeah,
right. But again, so while everyone's laughing at it's in stores, right?
It's
other people are saying yes.
Wait, who's laughing?
It's in stores.
Oh, there's a lot of people laughing.
Oh well, that's let me tell you something.
Look at this idiot company who put a product in stores for people to buy.
My God, how upset are the people in Redmond that they're going to have stock on a thing that they're trying to continue to increase demand for?
Mm-hmm.
But like again, when you go back to the situation for the Series X and PS5, you're still going to have a hard time getting those all year. I don't think
that's not changing anytime soon.
It's not changing anytime soon. So really, you're not winning in the traditional sense of the console war. You're not winning anything in February. You're not going to win anything in the next month, March, April, May. You're not nothing. Really, you could even say through the end of this year, you're not going to probably get from the enthusiasts. You're going to be moving all of these things, but when you think about the brand big picture, and now you start talking about the long game, yes, you want to get those big IPs that have potential to resonate and have legs and become part of that, big picture brand. Like people always think about, they always thought about Halo, Gears, and Forza with Xbox, and and Sony's kind of framing theirs right now, and it's really important to that. So I think that's all it is. And I don't think it's important that, Microsoft matches. Like, again, it's a long game. And I think they have a different strategy right now because of Game Pass. It's like, it's like that the old school marketing where, like every time you're watching a show, you saw, Budweiser or Miller Lite commercial or whatever. It's like we're always every Monday we wake up and the Xbox is, has popped up on Twitter in some way, shape, or form. I don't even know what the games are, but it's there.
It's always being talked about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, a quick aside,
that's kind
though,
of their game right now.
A quick aside,
real quick, but wait, before
ahead,
we continue, I just got to catch up with two super chats.
Yes,
First of all, Drawn TJ drops the first one of the year. Thanks so much for always being here and always supporting the channel. He drops a $5 super chat and says, "Hi guys, sorry I haven't been able to catch you guys live lately. Been busy. Keep up the fire content." Well, listen, we're glad that you are here, and we have an incredible, absolutely astounding $50 super chat that comes in from Terzochi, who drops again a $50 super chat. Says, "Happy New Year, everyone! Health and happiness to everyone, and onward and upward to you and the crew, Officer Friendly." Well, thank you so much for the extremely generous donation. Thank you so much for that. Definitely appreciate the kind words as well, and of course, by all means, continue.
Well, I wanted to ask a quick aside, just a quick side note, just to the conversation real quick. You guys do realize over the holidays and since the holidays, from time to time, xCloud, now we'll continue to call it xCloud because that's a better name than what they choose to call it.
Yeah, cloud gaming sucks. Sorry.
Yes, xCloud has had lines. Like I haven't experienced it too many times because I always end up being next to some native device. But there have been instances where you log into xCloud and they're like, "Sorry, all the lines are filled. You have to wait your turn." And sometimes it takes a while. You know, people don't add that into the formula when they're talking about, well, there's, and yes, we talk about it. And yes, it's a thing we know about. But that could become a big, huge part of this equation more and more as the actual hardware is harder to find. It is such a success, even by the Netflix version of 4K, which isn't really okay. People are still enjoying themselves. They're still using it to the point where sometimes you can't even get on when you want to. It's becoming a thing.
Yeah, well, they're not gonna want that though, right? Like, sure, good problem to have that they're.
No, I'm not saying that's a good problem. I'm saying that's a metric of, hey, folks are playing on xCloud more than you think. Is what I'm saying.
And so the
obviously
thing
that'll mean they'll have to grow their data centers to account for that,
and which means less that they can put on shelves because but anyway, the thing that I was going to say, even in terms of this sort of who won what, these companies in today's world are not competing as much as you think. And what I mean by that is, when Xbox sort of lays out their sort of roadmap and strategy internally, what Sony does and doesn't do is a factor, yes, but it's not about domination. It is about, especially on the Xbox side, because they sort of feel like you can grow the whole pie and they can eat and they can be wildly successful. And that doesn't mean it's to the detriment of Sony. Only in the Twitter streets, a lot of us believe that needs to be the case.
To your point, Everborn,
but they're
real
not
quick.
Operating.
To your point, have you listened to Phil Spencer's recent interview, the voice interview with Kara Swisher? Like it came out.
No, but I've heard him speak to what I'm saying a few times.
But to your point, he said that basically, like to that point a little bit, where he wishes that, and they were speaking specifically about bad actors on the platform. It frustrates him that they can't work together with other platforms. So like if you are an a-hole and you get banned on platform A, he wishes that he could then pass that on to platform B, so you get banned there too. He wants them to synergize. Yeah. He's not trying to compete. He wants them to all, because like it lifts all boats, as it were. You know what I'm saying? Like they really speak in those terms.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's implications there. We can talk about that on Saturday.
Yes.
You know how my brain thinks.
What I want to do is I kind of want to bring this conversation back around, and I say that because listen, Sony's going to do what Sony's going to do. And if you're discounting them, then you are a fool, because they are still a part of the conversation. Did they stumble? 100%. Microsoft took over 2021 and dominated the conversation and continued into 2022. That's not taking away what Sony is going to bring. Listen, all you have to do is look back to when the Switch launched in 2017 and see what Nintendo did. They bookend that year, right? And what did they do? They dominated the conversation. They dropped Breath of the Wild at launch, and they finished off in the holiday with Mario Odyssey. Absolutely incredible. And they had in the middle a bunch of remasters, which sold like hotcakes. So the Switch won. Now, I'm not saying that Sony is going to just step in and win. That's not going to happen. We lost Kazante for a hot second. We'll get him back here. But
boom, to your point, though, right? And this is why I always sort of laughed at this argument about only delivering in the last 2 months of the year. Again, we know that's false. We know that we were all playing games all year, right? But I think we're a little weird with it. Yeah. So, but again, what is wrong with both companies getting out of each other's way so everybody can eat? Because Sony typically drops their bigger games in the first half of the year. That's just been what they've done, right? Yep. Look at when Last of Us 2 comes out, Ghost of Tsushima comes out. Look at the months that those release.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that, because some people would call them petty because they want to be in the that's the thing. That's the thing. No. See, this is how you know two companies are going in different directions, like ships in the night, because Microsoft releases their games specifically when it's ready to release, and Sony kind of sometimes holds back on games so they can release them in that October, November, or September, October, so they can be the front runner for a Game of the Year award. That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's part of their sort of
it's their shrewd marketing,
element,
man.
It's
their shrewd marketing. But Hitman 2, people love Hitman 3, I should say. People love it. That conversation didn't last long enough for a Game of the Year.
But again, you know, what I'm saying is Sony typically doesn't release their big games in November, December.
In the holiday season.
Right? And Microsoft typically does. They try to get that holiday money. So is there a world where Sony is going to release in February? I'm going to go on mute because my dogs are crazy. Okay, no. Okay, I'll go on mute. You guys, I'll continue my point in a second.
Yeah, we'll come back to him in a second. I want to, like I said, I definitely want to bring this back around to the original topic. Right? So Sony is apparently going to do something in February. It's not surprising. Right. They have a big game coming out, and they want to try and grab the conversation and hold it as long as they can. Horizon is going to be potentially a high 90 meta game. That's expected. I can't wait for it. It's one of my favorite new IPs on the brand, on the platform. I can't wait. I'm gonna, whatever I'm playing, I'm gonna put it down to play this because I love that Sony format. But that's not the end of the conversation. The question is, well, what does Microsoft do to not lose the mind share that they have gained? Now, we have been hearing from several people that they are going to be doing something early in the year. Is that an acquisition? Is that a big is that a big reveal of a game that we didn't know was coming out this year? Is it going to be a Microsoft event where we see 3 and 4 games? Maybe we see Avowed. Maybe we see Perfect Dark outside of another trailer. Maybe we see something that we didn't expect to see, because we know that Horizon. For this year, Motorsport is coming. Deathloop is there, Redfall is there, and the big granddaddy of them all is going to be Starfield. Those are their
Stalker 2.
Well, just for Microsoft, though.
Oh, you're saying first party?
Yeah, okay. First party. So those are that falls into what they've been talking about. We've been talking about this for quite some time. They want one bomb per quarter. If they release only those 4 games, yes, there's your one per quarter. But I don't think that's going to be it. I think we're going to get several surprises, because We Happy Few developer, that game that they've been working on for quite some time, I think is ready. I don't know how ready, but I think that could be a possibility. Wolfenstein 3, supposedly that's been in the works for quite some time. That could drop this year as well.
So
what the question is what does Microsoft do? Do they release? Do they do something big right before Horizon releases? They pull a Sony or OBM. Break that down.
I think it's Game Pass, to be honest with you, this time of the year. That is the most important thing right now. I mean, it's not the only thing they're doing in gaming. They got their hands in everything. But right now, especially this time of the year, that is the one thing. See the difference, right? And this goes back to the difference between Microsoft and Sony. So Microsoft's not just selling you a box; they're trying to sell you an ecosystem, and then the box is one way to get in it. Every time you continue to build that value for Game Pass, or you kind of surprise people with games coming into it, or we just had the Ubisoft announcement and that game in there. Those types of things kind of elevate the platform for not just the people to buy more consoles, but also to go on their PCs and access it. And we were just mentioning a minute ago, even the cloud option, which I don't think they're pushing right now because they're not ready to go all. It's not ready for Prime 10 yet. They don't have, I think, enough to kind of fulfill the performance that they don't want people to be waiting in lines, basically.
Yeah, they don't have the instances enough.
No, that defeats the purpose of it. You want to go on there and have it immediate. So I guess without me circling the wagons too much here, really the Game Pass thing elevates the entire ecosystem, right? And then when you kind of get that mind share from the PC gamers, from the Xbox gamers, both at the same time, what I'm kind of feeling and noticing is that it seems like it's kind of working it together. I noticed even last year, because Microsoft now is supporting PC day and date on a lot of these things, and especially on all their first party games, that all of these games seem like they're getting a little bit better lift, because we know, a lot of YouTubers who didn't play Xbox have PCs, right? And now you're getting all their, the Twitch streamers, the PC gamers, they're kind of joining in now. And I think that's really kind of helping elevate it. So I think where they have the most opportunity this year is going to still be on the PC side, getting more of them to start downloading the Game Pass, using their bad PC store right now. But I do think that you will probably see, I guess I would be surprised if they don't have something that kind of, gets everybody talking in terms of a Game Pass release. Like last year we had MLB The Show, we had Outriders. We did see the Rainbow Six, was it Extraction? One of those. Yeah. We did see that one get announced. I wouldn't be surprised if they had something even bigger. That's, it's just a hunch. It's not a like a insider or rumor or anything like that. But that's it. We know that they have a big budget for those, and we didn't see them use a lot of that budget at the end of the year, and they didn't need to, I guess, because they had Halo and Forza. But I would start to expect to see more of that stuff. I think they're going to hold back the compulsions and the avoweds and that stuff for their big show in the summer, because I do think they're going to do one of those, build this around Starfield, which is going to be a lot bigger than I think people understand right now. I think they're going to use that to kind of raise the tide, raise all boats, right? That whole thing. That saying, I don't remember how it goes exactly.
Rising tide raises
all boats. Yeah. So like that whole thing, I think you're going to see that, and especially like I said, you're not going to move a ton of consoles between. You're not going to move a lot more than you would normally, right? People are still waiting in line for those. So I expect any games to be held for their big event. Going forward, though, I do think there's something to be said for having a more consistent cadence. And like I was kind of alluding to before, I could see in the future when Microsoft does start to have a AAA game in the first quarter of the year, which I think they will in 2023, that they can start to not save everything for the E3 and then the run up to the Christmas. I think that this might be the last year that you'll see that, but I still do expect it this year because of just where the availability of their games are for now.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and just one other thing though, like I think I agree with you, OBM, that the bigger announcements will be what they can secure into Game Pass, but I do think I don't think people realize it just based on what we know, what's announced, what kind of a sort of stellar year they're ahead for, right? Obviously the juggernaut is Starfield, right?
Yes.
But if judging by the reception and critical acclaim of Deathloop, Redfall is going to be a big deal, right? And then you'll also get Deathloop with whatever updates they're able to add, right? And then we've already talked about motorsports, and again, so
don't forget Halo. Halo's never fully.
That was my prediction that we're gonna get a story content drop by the end of the year.
I believe so. Mm-hmm.
And Forge and Co-op are coming, and once Forge hits Halo,
maps,
you want to talk about Forge and Co-op. Once that hits, that's going to have a whole second life, and I think they're going to want to time that with new story content. But anyway, so that in and of itself is a monster year. Right. And then we'll come to Stalker, and I'm going to count Stalker because I know we have a topic coming up. But if everybody can count Final Fantasy 16, I can count Stalker. Right. Stalker 2 is going to be huge for Xbox.
To be fair, the reason why they count Final Fantasy is because Sony's doing their best to make sure it only stays there. Whereas rumor has it Stalker is going to be there for like a week. But okay,
no, it's 4 months.
4 months
is what
compared to like indefinite years.
Okay, when people talk about Death's Door, like I know it's on PlayStation now, but like it got that kind of talk on Xbox, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
That is
so that's even the medium. People still think of that as an Xbox game.
Everborn in the Twitter Spaces, it's like the Matrix. You can make up whatever rules you want.
This is true. But the point is, for at least 3 months, there's one group of people that'll be playing. Two groups. PC,
well, there's also
everything.
but it's a little bit more than that, dude. Because it's the Game Pass effect is what you have to bring into it. Because here's the thing, okay, it's 3 months, it's 4 months, whatever it is, but we're gonna play it from Game Pass, whereas someone that's going to play it on the PlayStation 5, which is going to be, I'm sure they're going to have an audience. It's 76-43 here in New York.
All the coverage of it and the conversation will be dominated.
It's going to be Xbox, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So I say that to say, in terms of what's happening this year on Xbox, I think that is big, and I think if Starfield is what the hype has built it up to be, I think it does stand up to Sony's biggest this year.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So the competition is there, and anything else at this point is icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, I'm not saying they don't have to do anything. They need to stay in the news. They are in proving mode, or whatever we want to call that. Brand building, brand awareness, mind share building. So they need to do that. There will be announcements, but in terms of just what we know, I think we're in for a stellar year in terms of competition, and that is before any potential acquisition news, because that in and of itself keeps
let me interject a little.
The birds buzzing.
And this is more a question on my part than anything else. Since and as OBM you were pointing out, cadence matters, right? They need to have a structure in what folks should be expecting. What we have expected so far has been that a lot of the good Game Pass news doesn't come out in events unless it's monstrous, right? Unless it's like, hey, EA is joining Game Pass, right? Usually, if it's an event with Game Pass, it is like rainfall of games or huge innovation coming to that platform. Well, usually they leave the big games, even like the Ubisoft recent game, which could have been a big announcement in other years that would be showing up on stage, was thrown out on Twitter.
Well, that's the thing. They can make any Monday into
exactly.
Exactly
my point.
It's almost like you get a week and it's like, oh, it's just Ubisoft Plus and Ubisoft Day One game. Oh man, I was expecting a publisher this week. You know, it's like that's kind of like what it's gotten to, and I think that's intentional, and that's really the other point too, because and I mentioned earlier, I do think like they're loading up for some big show in the summer or whatever their E3 replacement is, but the thing is, we're in a different, like, this is a different time, and you can just on a random Monday drop news because of where we're at in the world socially with Twitter and social media.
Putting events together is not really what it used to be.
In fact, I would argue that what they're doing is more effective, because what it's accomplishing is it's keeping their base,
keeping folks in the mindset. Yes,
constant. I'm like looking, and they're like, their stuff is still constantly trending. And for the brand that's like way in third or whatever, like they're constantly trending all the time now, and that's the intention. And I just think they're just going to continue to drop random things, and they probably have a roadmap of things, game announcements of for Game Pass, and there will be their fiscal year ends in June, and usually it takes a little bit of time to kind of to tie up any acquisitions. I wouldn't be shocked if we did hear something in the next sooner than later on stuff like that. So so like stuff like that, and then again, going to something like Halo, if you for as much as Halo's dipped, and it has since the launch, and these things go up and down. That's how these free to play games work. It's still top 3, top 5 constantly on the Xbox platform. And when you come out with some big news for something that's got that kind of engagement, and that kind of mind share as well, like that's an event of itself. And they have these ways now of continuing the conversation, and it's not just am I going to add one more game to the List Wars, Twitter, discussion? There's so many different ways now, and it's no matter how much like some enthusiasts, with Pegasus clothing want to resist that. that is like the new reality, and it's not just about comparing lists anymore, right? It's about these ongoing games actually will have more engaged. I'd argue with you, like the next time Halo comes out, a big update with some maps and modes, and if it's a significant mode and things like that, that could be that could probably have more impact on engagement and them Xbox trending than an exclusive by maybe a lesser known AAA studio. So that's just kind of the era we're in right now. And I guess to answer Boom's question, which to take an hour to get there to answer the question.
No, that's okay.
I think there will be things. I think there will be things in February, but my hunch is that they're probably going to be Game Pass related. I wouldn't be shocked though if you did see like a studio or something
So just a quick aside here. I was just kind of Googling real quick just to see what is out there. We do have confirmed, as we've already said, Crossfire X, February 10th.
Yeah,
and then Shredders, the skateboard, the surfing game,
which looks great, by the way.
Crossfire X is looking a little spooky though, but yes,
yeah, it's looking a little. We
there's
have
like
to
no
wait and
hype on
see.
that at all.
Yeah, and those who've played it have come away with bad reviews. So I'm just kind of like, okay.
Let me ask the panel.
So hold on, one second. Let me finish. Shredders, February, and then right after that, March, Tunic. And then right after that, Stalker 2, April. So they have, besides January, they have a lineup coming in between whatever else they announced.
And don't forget the multiplats. Like I always love how people go, "Oh yeah, I'll have nothing to play." It's like, I'm playing Elden Ring. I'm shutting down for Elden Ring. Everything else is gonna, go on hold until I'm done.
So,
there's a lot of good third party games.
That's an important point as well. I think we have limited. We've fallen for the trap when we limit the discussion of what people are playing. Right. Think about how we've limited some of these discussions.
Well, but you know why that is though. That is because a lot of the third parties tend to come on Xbox Game Pass, and if you include them in the conversation, then one side is losing out the other. So it's not only
but that's the point. And I think we do some of the work that they're doing over there to provide, content for their fans a little bit of a disservice when we limit the conversation to, well, what's exclusive, as though other games didn't take your time and money and give you enjoyment, right? That is the platform you're on providing you with things you want to play.
I think that they're doing that in an earnest capacity, even though a lot of them are not. In an earnest, when you think about it earnestly, they're trying to find differentiation in the platform, right? The multiplats don't provide that differentiation. They're trying to find, hey, what makes this unique to the other one? Because the CODs will come everywhere, so there's no need to talk about that. That'll just be everywhere. What makes this one special?
Yeah, I think that's bigger picture long term though. That's the other silly thing. It's like you don't need if you are one of these people that only will play in console and only can afford one, and you're going to justify your value based off of exclusives, you don't need to re-justify that value every single month, right? Like that's the one thing I never understand. Usually, it's more like the total picture, right? The big picture. What are the big games that I really, really want? Other than that, though, most people, like even if you look at the engagement on both platforms, sorry, I got something in my ear. Or if you look at the sales on both platforms, like 80 to 85% of the games are like the same.
Yeah, true. Usually they are. Usually it's a third party.
Dying Light 2, Elden Ring, Destiny 2, like those are going to be three of the most played things no matter what platform whether you're Xbox, PC, PlayStation. Those are going to be three of the most played games next month regardless. So that's it's if you ever were going to have a slow period, and I think this was always a good strategy from Sony, when everybody else used to ignore the beginning of the year, let's go hard at the beginning of the year, and then we got the third parties kind of backing us at the end of the year. Our base is going to be playing Call of Duty then anyways. So like now it's almost like this time it's almost flipped because the end of last year wasn't a big, like the big third parties really didn't land with Battlefield and Call of Duty, and everything else got delayed, and now we're looking at the beginning of this year being almost that period where all the big third parties are releasing. So it's a good time, honestly, if you're gonna have a drought first party wise, like this is probably
a good time to have it.
Yeah, true. No, I absolutely agree. Listen, what I want to do is I want to move on to the big topic, what we've been advertising, and that is the big rumor that comes way of VGCs. And of course, I'm always talking about Video Game Chronicles. They're a fantastic website. I get a lot of my information from them. The story that I'm talking about comes way of Jordan Midler, who recently commented on Reset Era about Square Enix plans for Final Fantasy. And according to Midler, most of the games that Square Enix publishes will make their way to Xbox, but this is the catch. It is doubtful that the mainstream Final Fantasy games will come to the platform moving forward. Now, there is Stranger in Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, which is supposed to be released on Xbox. But this comes to us because we are still waiting for Final Fantasy VII Remake and again, the rumor is that Sony paid Square Enix to keep that off of Xbox. Now, is it permanently off Xbox? I don't know because Square Enix isn't saying. But we do know that Forsaken is a 2-year deal and probably longer than that. And now we have to get into the question. Now, depending on what side of the aisle you fall in, some people are going to suggest that we are sour grapes here. Oh, because I personally don't care about Final Fantasy games. I just don't. I love Final Fantasy VII, sure. And if it came to Xbox, I would probably beat it there. But if it doesn't come, I have it for the PlayStation 5. That's fine. I'll eventually get around to it. So for me, I don't care that Final Fantasy doesn't come to Xbox because if you asked me, well, Boom, what would you like better? Would you rather Square Enix games come to the Xbox or something like, well, I'd rather have Bethesda games exclusive to Xbox. I'd rather have Bethesda's games exclusive to Xbox, to be quite frankly. But let's start with One Bad Mother. I know that you have a significant amount of speak on this. Should Xbox gamers be pissed that it appears that Sony and Square collaboratively want to make Final Fantasy a PlayStation only thing? And I'm talking mainstream, Final Fantasy. Is it a big deal?
Well, I understand. Like, consumers are going to be pissed, and I understand because when you're a consumer, you look at it. What have you done for me lately? You're not really looking at the big picture. I would argue though, and I've said this to like on Xbox Era in our forums, in our just amongst the community and things like that. Like I kind of encourage this escalation between the two platforms this generation, and I'll kind of step back to a little bit why, because I do remember you go all the way back to the E3 2005. I remember for the first time seeing Final Fantasy pop up in the show, and what a moment for the Xbox platform and the 360 that was. It was like almost like it gave it this credibility, right? Because they were coming off a generation where PS2 like outsold them 6-1.
Yes.
It felt like for me, who was sitting there as just like a guy who gave the platform, and obviously sales don't determine. If sales determined anything for me, that wouldn't have been my primary platform. But but sitting there, I was like, oh, like this feels like, and I wasn't, I kind of moved on from Final Fantasy at that time, but I'm like, this feels like like a shift. It was like a change in credibility as Xbox becoming a mainstream platform, because now this was the game that defined really the PlayStation for the their first generation. And then early on, even though it really was more about Grand Theft Auto 3, it was still a big part of that brand and why people moved to that platform. And as that generation progressed, and as the 360 grew and became it found itself, and suddenly third parties realized, hey, they're here to stay. We can't really ignore this. And you started to see at a certain point, you started to see all the big third-party games go to both platforms and try to go everywhere, because what started to happen over the course of the generation, AAA games got more expensive. They took longer to develop, and this just continued for the next few years, and it became a lot more cost prohibitive for Microsoft and Sony to really just keep throwing money around to go, oh, I want that third party game, I want that third party game. You could do it here and there, but it wasn't really something that you could do regularly and run a sensible business. And so we moved on to the last generation, and again, like AAA games got so risky and expensive that third parties really couldn't risk it that much, not with their bigger titles, right? And so you saw Final Fantasy again there. You saw Metal Gear go, to everything. You saw, really across the board. Obviously Mass Effect eventually went over to the Sony side, and really, if you didn't end up, if the platforms didn't own it, the chances were it was going to be everywhere. And so like that became like the new norm. And I think, what we kind of saw over the last generation is both companies got really comfortable with, I don't want to say comfortable because Xbox was never in a comfortable spot, but as we kind of like learned where their pecking order was, there was really a lot less risk taking. And I'd argue it was across every major publisher, including Microsoft. We saw them, they relied on their big three. And I would even say Sony to a certain point. Yes, they put out some of the, greatest third-person action adventure games of all time, but their biggest games were really kind of in that lane they understood, right? Like they weren't taking huge, giant risk most of the time with their biggest games. And so that's kind of what we saw the last generation. And now all of a sudden, here we are, not even just over a year into the new generation. And before you know it, all these Bethesda games, they're now going to be exclusive. Remember the conversation from some of the mainstream at the beginning was, well, can Microsoft afford to pull them off of Sony? And now you're seeing Sony's all of a sudden finding the money to make something like a Final Fantasy exclusive. And there's more, right? It's come from Jeff Grubb, it's come from others. Sony's spent a lot, I guess they spent a lot of money on trying to lock down these exclusives this generation. And that stuff's not cheap. And that's the reason you didn't see it before. So why is it happening now? The reason it's happening now is, twofold. The industry is projected to get so much bigger. So there's a lot more return available big picture. And that's why they're trying to lock down themselves now. And the content is king. And so the platform exclusives are now escalating in terms of importance again, because the pecking order that we've always known, where people could say, well, if you're a PlayStation gamer, why would you switch? You got your library there. If you're Xbox gamer, why would you switch? Well, in the next paradigm, it's going to be you're going to be an app. You're going to be a platform that moves everywhere. And at that point, content is the only thing that's going to separate you. And so right now you're starting to see an arms race, and I'm here for it. Like for somebody, and I have, the PS5, Xbox Switch, but Xbox is my primary platform. I'm not going to lie. Like if there's a third party game and I'm on the fence about it, well, if I can play it on Xbox with my Elite controller and I can be one step away from jumping in with my buddies on, in Halo, I'm going to play it there, right? Over the play. And that might be a tipping point for whether I buy that game or not. But, so do I, love the fact that, some of these games that I, may have been on the fence with are going to be now platform exclusive. In a vacuum, no. However, I'm all for this arms race. Like I'm all for this thing becoming a bloodbath between these mega corporations, because what you're going to end up finding out is in the next few years, these platforms are going to be more accessible. You're going to have more gamers that have multiple platforms than ever before. Just like today, if there's I just watched Arcane on Netflix. A few months I'll jump over and watch the Boys on Amazon. It's not like I'm not going like, oh my God, this platform, this streaming platform has this movie and this one has that one and who's winning. It's just like I'm just going wherever the content is at. And as consumers, I think that's where we're going to eventually be. And it's not like in the next year or two, but it's coming sooner than people I think. And if that's going to be that for us, then these other companies are going to fight for it with exclusive content, taking risks that they haven't taken in almost a decade. And like that's going to benefit us because they're going to be looking to how are we going to provide that value? How are we going to keep them engaged in our app? How are we going to keep
them fighting is fighting over creating value for us.
Yes. And we're going to find different ways. And that's why I suspect, again, no insider rumors, anything, but why I suspect eventually Sony is going to up the value of their subscriptions as well. It's going to be a value proposition. It's going to be who's offering me the most value, who's getting my engagement, because it's not going to be like, I feel like most real hardcore enthusiast gamers are just going to have access one way or another. Maybe you have one local and one that's cloud-based, whatever. You're going to have access to all the ecosystems. It's going to be who keeps you engaged, who do you keep coming back to, who are you talking about, who are you spending your money on microtransactions with, which platform is the one you're pulling your friends into. So when you start thinking about it that way, yeah, let them fight. It's not a I understand, like, I hear from from fans of Japanese RPGs in the Xbox community, like, this really sucks, but you're just going to have to accept at some point as a gaming enthusiast that you will probably need to engage in more than one ecosystem, but it's going to be better for you. You're going to get more for your money, honestly, and that's the other ironic part. You're going to get more for your dollar in this next paradigm change than you ever have. Being in two ecosystems, it will still cost you less for more content, and so yeah, I'm here for it. It doesn't really. And there's Microsoft's going to buy more companies. They're going to have a lot of second party deals. They're going to lock that, you've already heard that, Jez has already talked about IOI, one of the better independent developers out there right now, is going to be locked down for Microsoft exclusive. And there's going to be others out there. And so these companies are going to fight over us, and let them embrace it. Be okay with it.
For me, for little old, hang on a minute. Just everybody, do me a favor. Say it with me. It's not show friends.
It's show business.
It's
business, yeah.
Right.
So don't take it personal.
Right. Look. Here's the thing, and I want to ask just one question. Right. I want if you've invested in the Xbox ecosystem and you hear this news and it makes you feel a certain way, maybe it grinds your gears. Ask yourself how you really made out in this deal, right? So if I told you had to trade the next Final Fantasy game, and I want you to keep Final Fantasy 15 in your mind when I say this.
I hated that game, by the way. Hated it.
Now, if I told you'd get Doom, you'd get Wolfenstein, you'd get Starfield, you'd get Elder Scrolls, you'll get Fallout, whatever the next one is, but you have to give up Final Fantasy 16.
Bye.
And not just that you're getting it, like, not just that you have access to buy it. You're basically, if you paid for your subscription, you're getting it at no extra cost, right? Like, that's like a real value.
I think the Xbox guys made out like bandits on this exchange. So
100%.
It is what it is, right? And what did you think was going to happen, right? Microsoft is buying up publishers, buying up studios. You thought Sony was just gonna sit down and let that happen? So we don't have Final Fantasy now, and we don't even know if this rumor is true. But I'm gonna assume that it's true.
I'm assuming it's true. Yeah,
that's the game.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is look back to Final Fantasy 16. That's a 2-year exclusive. Forsaken, it's a 2-year exclusive.
I mean, they can keep some of these games, but
Final Fantasy 7. Is it a permanent exclusive on PlayStation? We honestly don't know, because Square Enix isn't saying. Right, no one's backing them. No one's holding them on the stage that they did for the Tomb Raider folks with Crystal Dynamics when that deal was announced. Right, they literally had to say that, oh no, it's coming in a year, before the press allowed them off the stage. I recall that. It's pretty ridiculous. But look, personally speaking, and I understand this is just me, I literally loathed Final Fantasy 15. I thought it was a big steaming pile. Okay, and to be quite frank, Square Enix, in regards to Final Fantasy, just not the same developer anymore. They're just not that good anymore.
The 7 remake was I think.
No. I'm not talking about 7. 7 is 7 has its own set of problems, that it's not a full game. That it's going to take 15 years to get the final chapter. Right? That's its own problem. The game was beautiful, and
I think that should be the future of that franchise. Maybe
I don't know. I wish we could have just gotten a regular Final Fantasy 7 and been done with it.
I'm saying like 16 should have taken that model of how to build that game. Because I don't want 16 to feel like 15. If
it's going to feel exactly like 15, it literally feels like to be 15
7 remakes in terms of the gameplay and everything. That's what I hope for anyway.
Look. Let's get Keisante in the conversation. Keisante, there are a subset of people, and I might be in the minority here, that I don't dislike Japanese RPGs. I'm quite fond of them. I just don't care about Square Enix. I just really don't. But I'm not going to take away from the fact that someone who likes Final Fantasy is going to feel slighted. Let's just say that they're only Xbox gamers and they're like, hey, what about me? Well, the problem is exactly what Everborn Saga said. Microsoft bought a publisher that literally has so many classic IPs that Sony just didn't know what to do with themselves. I think they caught them flat-footed with this. Because if you remember, the rumor, I don't know if this is true, Sony tried to lock down Starfield as an exclusive. They tried to make that an exclusive, and then of course, instead of just buying the cow, Microsoft bought the farm, and they were pretty much shit out of luck. So Sony got caught flat-footed. So they had to make these deals. They had to try and get a Final Fantasy 16 and a Forsaken and a few others. So, one is going to do something and the other one's going to retaliate. It's just the way it is. Where do you fall on this? Should gamers be upset?
I mean, honestly, I think we're all in agreement here. I don't think it's that big a deal. It is business. It's tit for tat, as they say. Especially and honestly, this is not as much of a hair-raising move as Bethesda being purchased by Microsoft, because Bethesda, you can argue, had legions of fans on all platforms. Right?
Yes.
Whereas as Dan Lazaro has pointed out correctly in the super chat here, shout out to Dan Lazaro, they're not that popular in the US, and that's not true necessarily, but there's more of a contingent on the PlayStation side. There just always has been, because that's what brought PlayStation to its fame, right?
But I thought Bethesda was Bugthesda after they got purchased.
Stop it.
And nobody cares about that.
Stop it. But what I'm saying is, in general, you should expect that this kind of stuff happens, right? Insomniac going exclusive to PlayStation, that was a more hair-raising move than this, because for those who are only in the PlayStation world, the all they think of is Ratchet and Clank, all they think of is that stuff. Oh, that makes sense. But I'll tell you, VR people were up in arms. Most of the AAA VR games came from Insomniac, and we'll never see them again. So, that happens all the time. They were like,
you'll see them on PlayStation VR 2.0.
Exactly, you'll see them on 2.0. There were 4 or 5 really, like, and shout out to the ILP over the weekend. I heard you guys talking about, hey, they need more AAA content. They have the AAA content. They were just Insomniac games on the old Rift that now takes a little bit of effort before you can get access to them, right? But hey, when PlayStation bought them, that all dried up. This stuff happens, right? I would be more surprised if they bought a studio or bought a contributor to the franchise, to the platforms that were more synonymous with both platforms, like Bethesda, right? That was more hair-raising. This is just like, yeah, I expected something like this to happen, and it has. Now, I will say, like, I played, what was it recently? I played Final Fantasy 13. I went and revisited it on the Xbox because they did a FPS boost on it and cleaned it up. It looks really cool. The story is bananas. Like, it's just the weirdest words that make no sense. I'm like looking in the dictionary. Is this a true word? No, it's not. They just invented it for this game. Okay. it's just strange. But if there is a small piece of me, and like you, OBM, although I own all platforms and I'm privileged to be able to do so, if I have my choice, I will play it on Xbox.
Yeah, me too.
Not for any purpose, but the idea that when I turned on Final Fantasy 13 that I hadn't played since 2010, I think it was, my save from 2010 was still there. Wow. I can never promise that when I'm on the PlayStation side, right? They seem to be heading more towards the infrastructure side now, but Microsoft has been doing that for years, so I can always trust that whenever I pick up that old game, your
save is going to be there for you.
Is all there, right? That's the only piece of the puzzle for me that makes me go, if I had my choice, I'd want to play it on the thing that I know that even if we move to a new paradigm where there's no console, my old games that I bought way long will still follow me. That's the
not
only
to mention those saves transition between and PC as well.
That's right, exactly.
And
that
the
is
cloud.
The only,
that is the only time.
The only time when an Xbox gamer has some kind of a little bit of righteous frustration, because if you buy it on PlayStation, you just never know. I have so many great PlayStation 3 games that until I turn on the big a George Foreman grill, you'll never see it again. It's just gone.
Well, I got news for you to add to that frustration with PlayStation. If you ever let your PlayStation Plus subscription expire,
there goes
buy
your
saves.
Yes, there goes
But let me ask you a question. On Xbox, do you need an instruction manual on how to transfer your save file over? You don't need that?
Stop being slanderous.
Okay.
We don't need all of that. We don't need all that. For a quick example, in PS3, I never got to play Heavenly Sword because I signed on a little late to the PS3. I actually I still have my OG George Foreman grill, the one that actually has native backward compatibility in it. I still have that one. It still runs. Never got to play Heavenly Sword. Would love to play it now. Would love to play it now, especially hearing that this was one of the really big hitters that Ninja Theory did, and it was really cool. Hard as hell to do so, right? Yeah. So because of things like that, whenever there's a new platform or a new game like Sifu, I'm there day one. I cannot wait to play that game.
Me too.
But there's a big thing in the back of my head going, well, when the PS6 comes out, I probably won't ever be able to see this thing again because they'll just go, we believe in generations, throw it to the back. Ridiculous.
I'm a simpler man. I'm a simpler man. It's always what console am I closest to jumping in a game of Halo on? So that's how that works for me.
And you know what? Because Halo also has been my reason for loving Xbox, because I have been playing the Master Chief Collection on everything for so long. It's on my PC. It's on my phone. It's on some tablets. It's on the Xbox OG One. It's on, it's everywhere I want to play it. Sometimes I play it while I'm waiting in line at the grocery store or something. Like, I can do that, right? So all that is the only reason why when I hear one platform that I may like or one game franchise that I may enjoy has moved over to be exclusive on another side, I go, oh, well, there goes that ability, right? That's the only piece of the puzzle that makes me bristle a little bit. But the franchise or Final Fantasy itself, come on now, you know how it goes. And if all these rumors are to be believed, there's a universe where all of Final Fantasy goes to PlayStation and all of the Western RPGs of Square Enix goes to Microsoft. Who loses out in that?
They might end up still buying the,
Exactly. That's my point. When that world happens, who loses out? Ask yourself, people.
Well, I mean, continue.
I was just gonna say, final point. Ask yourself, anybody who's been using Netflix for as long as I have been using Netflix, which is from the beginning, who's sitting there right now today going, damn it, why isn't all the Friends still on Netflix? We should riot. Eventually they caught on and they started making their own franchises, and now you can't wait for Umbrella Academy. Just move on. It is what it is, right?
Yeah. And that's, you bring up some good points there too. And it's, I will say though, for anybody that's doing the, Bethesda versus Square, they're not even in the same,
not even the same ballpark.
No. Yeah, no, one's a actually $8 billion purchase, and where all those IPs forever will sit on Game Pass, and that creates a different value proposition. But they're part of the bigger equation of exclusive content, right? And it is worth considering. So you guys are mentioning like the Japanese RPGs. I don't think Microsoft's giving up on Japan, and in fact, I think something like no, not at all. And I in fact, I would even argue that taking something like Final Fantasy off of the Xbox doesn't really for that platform, for their executives, their strategy, things like that. I think big picture, it's going to be a long term. It's the long game for anything when it comes to the gamer that really values the Japanese content. And I think where they're going to end up winning them is not as the primary platform. It's going to be as the additive platform, as hey, you already got a PlayStation 5, but hey, for $1, you can jump on here and you can try these, these games that Microsoft funded from these other developers. And I know it feels like every time I come on the show, we always talk about, all these bigger indies that are building up across the entire globe, and there's going to be a lot of opportunities. I would be very surprised if in the next year or two you don't hear Microsoft has some Japanese second party exclusives being built for the platform that'll launch day one in Game Pass, and they're going to build up that catalog. And over time, it's not going to be something that they're going to change anytime in the next 2-3 years.
You know what, OBM, real quick to your point exactly. I've always, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, I've always kind of felt like they don't like you that much, stop chasing the white whale. Like, let them have that. They're not the only game in town. There are so many, and of course, obviously, Square being the big dog in the JRPG scene. There are many underdogs ready to steal that thunder.
Are they though?
But everybody,
because when you look at Bandai Namco,
and I have
what they're
headphones on,
doing,
and then out of nowhere, Sega just blares in my. Shut your mouth.
No, I mean, all jokes aside, like I know. Listen, I'm not taking away from the fact that if you are a Square fan, that you're not disappointed. I hear you. I'm not gonna discount that. You know, again, we are all very fortunate gamers, where I don't look at being able to support multiple platforms as something that is just a guarantee. That some people can't do that. I understand that. You know, I again, being retired,
I couldn't when I was younger. That's
I have to make certain decisions, you know, because that's the pay, and you got to work with what you got, right? It's not like back in the days I used to be like, well, you know what? There's a $1,200 launch coming, so I'm going to work 40 hours of overtime and just do a bunch of midnights. You know, I can't do that anymore. I'm retired, so I get it that some people can't afford to be on both or multiple platforms, but everyone's been making some great points, and I'm not saying one point is better than the other or what's right is wrong. If you're asking me, I'm picking Bethesda over Square 10 out of 10 times because I don't give a shit about Square. I just don't. But I am going to say this. If you think that Microsoft is done adding to Xbox Game Studios, do me a favor. We got 300 people here. Go watch the new X vlog I just put out. I break down 8 studios that are coming, and I give good reasons as to why that they are. If that comes to fruition, if by the end of 2022 they add these studios, folks, they can keep Square at that point, because it's just going to be so lopsided, and they're going to have literally 31 studios making AAA games. I don't think a Final Fantasy game or 3 are gonna be missed. I just don't. And again, this is the rumor is that it's only mainline Final Fantasy stuff, not some of their wacky offshoot stuff that they're doing.
Truth be told, if you told me that their Western studios were all going to be exclusive, that would hurt me more.
I would
because
be more
the Western
upset about
studios
that.
Make so much amazing stuff. Guardians of the Galaxy being one of them.
I'm literally playing that. I was playing it today. It is a masterpiece.
It's amazing. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So, but listen, let me just catch up with some of the super chats. And I want to do a big shout out to a good friend of the show. Bunty has been a member for 8 months and he says, "What's up, Boom and Panel? Can't wait to check out the show later. Have a great day, indeed, Bunty. Have a great day." Dan Lazaro, good and generous friend of the show, he drops a $2 super chat and says, "JRPGs are just not that popular here in the U.S. Bye." And we have Arigato, sir, drops a $5 super chat. Says, "I think you guys are underestimating the Final Fantasy, that we're underestimating the Final Fantasy right now. Final Fantasy 14 passed 25 million players. I think the hype is He says,
and I've been waiting for that one.
Yeah. I think the hype is very high for the franchise piece, guys. Okay, I mean,
and we appreciate that, but I just want to point you to another number. It also happens to be 25 million, and that's the monthly players for Sea of Thieves.
Yeah,
and I don't see a lot of PlayStation guys saying, "Oh my God, we have to go and get Sea of Thieves, or I have to go over to Xbox for that." And the reason I bring that up is, okay, it's a popular game, 25 million people. I don't know that moves the needle in terms of feeling fulfilled with the platform choice that you have. So I get it, but if we don't get Final Fantasy, we just don't get it.
Can I answer Everborn's answer to that?
Yes, go ahead.
Just because I love to. It's not necessarily devil's advocate. Like, both platforms, yeah, they're going to have standout things. Just kind of going to the initial point I said. Final Fantasy is still big. It's actually kind of coming back. If you look at 14, I think, yeah, its engagement numbers are extremely high. And I think like Final Fantasy 15 is sold 15 million. But then, just to put that in perspective, Skyrim sold 30 million, right? So like both of the platforms are going to have standouts. The one thing that did change since, the whole Final Fantasy really made the PlayStation brand back then, it was the game for a long time. Now there is other things. And I think the Western RPGs absolutely have more impact in a lot of markets, probably that Microsoft has the most opportunity in right now. Final Fantasy obviously is still huge. It's one of the biggest IPs ever. It's still huge, worldwide. But it's also huge in a lot of. It's also got some of its most success in markets that Sony's already dominating, and it's going to be Microsoft's probably their chance of ever getting into some of those markets is going to be through cloud anyway. So I just some perspective on it. I don't think anything he's saying is wrong. It is still a huge franchise, but they're both going to have huge franchises. And the nuance of it is what is the markets that they're going to have those huge success.
Right. I just want to point out vested interest says Final Fantasy 14 is a refugee camp for the WoW exodus.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, it's not even funny. It is true. There are so many people who are disillusioned with WoW that are going to Final Fantasy 14 and loving it. It is what it is. That's what it is.
It's a big game right now, for sure. It's a good win. It's not for the brand.
Isn't it to the point where they sold so much that you can no longer buy it for a while and they just weren't selling it anymore because they did not have the server space. They did not have the server space to sustain more people buying it. They took it off the shelves for a while. It's a roaring success. Hey, good for you guys, right? It just doesn't necessarily mean that's the end all be all of a platform. Those that love it will buy it. And if you are a Final Fantasy lover who really wants it, we have a console for you. It's called the PlayStation, and we love that too.
But one thing though, I will just I'll throw one last thing, and I know I'm talking way too much, but there's
this is a conversational podcast. Go crazy, dude. It's cool.
But I do think on this point of these massive big IPs, I just mentioned Skyrim sold 30 million. I don't know if you guys
Skyrim sold 30 million like 5 years ago.
Something like that. It's like it's insane, right? Like,
I remember Todd Howard, somebody gave that 30 million number to Todd Howard. He's like, it's more.
Yeah, stop buying it then if you guys don't want me to keep remaking it. But but it's not just the sales. And like this is the other thing that we don't talk about if we're talking about the business of gaming, which we're doing, it's not just sales anymore. It's really like what is keeping people
the engagement aspect that people made fun of OBM when Microsoft would talk about it. Didn't make fun of it as soon as Sony started talking about it because the engagement factor is a big part of the conversation.
And have you guys looked to see what Bethesda RPG's engagements like these days? Like even now, Skyrim, which is 10 years old? It's a decade old. It's still in the top 25 most played games on Xbox if you go look right now. And not only that, if you pull out all the Gaz games, all the multiplayer things, that have the battle passes and all that stuff, it's in the top 3 most played single player games. And it's like month after month that thing. So when people when you think about the fact that Fallout had it wasn't a new franchise, but it was basically a new franchise to the majority of people that ended up engaging in it. They engage in it because of it was the makers of Elder Scrolls. I think people are grossly underestimating the impact Starfield's going to have this year. Starfield's probably going to be the biggest IP Microsoft has launched since the original Halo trilogy, and that's kind of my prediction. And I think that people don't understand the legs those games have, the worldwide appeal those games have, the PC, PC and console, it balances between the two, and the fact that could actually be the game that drives cloud when that cloud is ready for prime time. So
I'm glad you brought that up because if you look at the way this year is playing out, it's going to be a big year for Bethesda. right? For especially on Xbox. I mean, they have Redfall, new IP. They have Starfield, new IP. They have Deathloop, new IP for Xbox gamers who didn't go out. I went out and bought it for the PlayStation 5 because I'm a Bethesda fan. So a lot of people that didn't get it there are going to get it. So new IP. And I really think the Castle Wolfenstein 3 thing is real. I think that Machine Games is a big enough studio to currently be working on Indiana Jones, but this game has got it's been in development potentially almost 5 years. And obviously the one with the two daughters was which was terrible to be honest.
Wasn't from Machine Games.
It wasn't from them. Awful. So they assisted, but they didn't work on it. Probably because they were working on Castle Wolfenstein 3. If it turns out,
get Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I think that's the next one.
Yeah, or there's no doubt about it, and that is going to be exclusive. That's that. I know people are like, no, it's Microsoft they're good guys. They're going to release it on the PlayStation. Good luck with that, pal. That's not happening. That's going to end up being an exclusive. But Everborn, do you want to comment on this Final Fantasy shenanigans?
I mean, look. First of all, I see Xbox University.
Yeah, he's actually in the chat. Gave him a big shout out before. He's gonna. He said he owes us a show. Yeah, we're gonna get him back on here for sure.
But yeah. So for me, like I expect more of this, and it just is what it is. I said this back before it turned out to be like a wet fart, Spider-Man being an exclusive in Avengers. Everybody got upset about it. That's when I started talking about show friends and show business. Look, these things are going to happen. It's going to happen more.
He didn't even you know what? He didn't even get the Black Panther treatment where he had his own story.
But why would they?
And then long story short, Fortnite's Spider-Man is way better than that one.
And listen,
so sad.
And listen, let's be clear. And Crystal Dynamics just told it like it was. Look, not everybody's getting this content, so we're not wasting time on it. You get what you get. They already sound like an in-house studio to me.
They are an in-house studio. They just haven't been announced as one.
But furthermore, look, there's a world where my dream acquisition happens, and Sega happens, and then people are going to be crying about where Persona goes, and Yakuza and all those things. So you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Yeah. Mm-hmm. In this world of isn't the first nor the last time. There's going to be some content that you lose. So you have to, if you can only choose one, you have to choose wisely, and you have to set that balance scale up and say, well, what's this ecosystem offering me versus the other one? You don't have to have all the games that everybody has to have. And so, that's just it. And you're not I know, like, it's Final Fantasy. We all grew up with it. If Final Fantasy is that important to you, you got one choice. Yeah. No. But it'll be on PC also.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So
there you go. Yeah.
So it is what it is, and I expect more of this, and I expect more acquisitions. I expect more publishers on the Xbox side, and who knows? Maybe I don't even know if they have to, right? Because they're already, why buy the cow if you're getting the milk from Square? But maybe Sony buys Square Enix. Who knows?
It's a possibility.
It is certainly. I mean,
it'll be a costly possibility, but it is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, look, if there was, I'll say this: if there was going to be an acquisition of Square Enix, it probably wouldn't be Microsoft, even though they could. It would be someone that they are familiar with. It would be Sony, and if that happened,
I think that would be a good fit. Honestly,
it would be a great fit,
just like Bethesda's a great fit for Microsoft.
Exactly. Yeah,
I mean, DNA's there.
Well, I mean, if it did happen, let's just say, for instance, that Square Enix decided to become part of SIE for whatever reason that may be, it would be okay. Like, they've worked together for so many years, and every time I think of Final Fantasy, I honestly don't think of it as an Xbox game. I think of it as a PlayStation game. That's how it's always been. So I mean, I don't care, but I do want to kind of just grab the panel's opinion on something that someone said in the chat that's pretty interesting. Junior Cud Joe, it looks like, says again, no one knows S about Starfield. What are we doing here? Well, I mean,
I'll
here,
take. Can I?
Oh, you're gonna take it
go.
away? Okay, go ahead.
yeah, well, I'll let you go, but all I can say is that, well, when you have the creator of some of the biggest RPGs in the history of Western RPGs tell you that basically it is going to be Skyrim in space, I think everyone is okay with not knowing much about it. But we do know that this is the dream project for Todd Howard and that team. This is something that he's been working on apparently for a decade. So I mean, yeah, sure, we don't know a lot about it, but I don't necessarily think that should be discounted because all we saw was what we saw. But I'll let the panel answer, and go ahead, Everborn.
So the unfortunate part about this is that the man has a Sonic avatar. It's like my own family. Why are you doing this?
See, what does that tell you? Heathens, all of them. Sonic avatar.
Right? You know what I'm talking about? Now look, I didn't like when they announced the Wolverine game from Insomniac.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
We all got excited because guess what? We know the pedigree of Insomniac.
Right. Yes.
Right? So and guess what? Bethesda's A team. We know the pedigree. We just talked about it with Skyrim. We talked about it with Fallout. Right? Do we think they forgot how to make games? Do we
That's
think
when Microsoft bought them? They forgot how to make games. You know.
Right? Do we think? Did Todd Howard leave? Right? So this is the thing. It is from they said it already. Skyrim in space. Yeah. Right? From the people who made Skyrim. Right? They get it. Right? They've done it. They like Fallout, when that came out, that was like, okay, post-apocalyptic Skyrim, right? Like now it's going to be, future Skyrim, and that they know what they're doing. They know how to create worlds, and if you can look at the track record of a studio and the quality that they deliver, like you can be excited here. So we do know what it is, right?
Well, and we just mentioned it a few minutes ago too, Everborn. Like when I was talking about like the Skyrim and like Bethesda's single player RPGs are probably second only to Rockstar in terms of single player games when it comes to the combination of sales and engagement. Like they're behind Rockstar. That's really the only other company that does that type of thing. So this is like the next thing after Rockstar when it comes to those single player games. Elder Scrolls and Starfield together combined have sold over 100 million. Both are still in the top. Like I said, you look on Xbox, they're both still in the top 40. Skyrim in the top 25. They're both in the top 5 in terms of most played single player games, and this is years after the release. And this is also, Todd Howard actually has put out enough details to keep the Bethesda enthusiasts excited. He has told people that this is they're going back to the roots. This is going to be more of an dynamic player autonomy RPG, similar more to the Elder Scrolls games, rather than like Fallout 4 was streamlined a little bit too much. They got some pushback on that. And then they've also been very public about the fact that the engine is getting its biggest update since going from Morrowind to Oblivion. And anybody who was part of that experience, I remember walking out of the dungeon in Oblivion as being like the next gen moment for me on the 360. That was a huge upgrade. And from everything I've been hearing about it, it's going to be pretty big. It's going to be a pretty substantial improvement, not just in terms of visuals, but even in terms of things like the physics and things in animations and AI, like their whole, when they update something, it's not just so it looks better in screenshots. It's to make the whole world more immersive. And that's why people are excited, because nobody else makes these kind of games. They take, this has been in production since it started pre-production in 2013. And I know people say, well, it's just been in the full production the last few years, but that's how all Bethesda games are. They spend
they're slow drip.
Yeah, they spend the bulk of their development on systems, dialogue, lore, all that stuff, and then when they're ready, they pull in the full team, and it takes them a few years to kind of slam it all together. But yeah, that's why people are excited, and that's why you see it trend, and people go, "Why did we haven't even seen gameplay?" Well, Bethesda fans have a general idea. It's going to be Skyrim in space.
And now, to your point,
isn't it the same thing for everything? Like if you're talking about movies, if you're talking about TV shows, certain names get people excited. You don't have to see a damn trailer. You don't have to hear the synopsis. As long as it's being made by enter your favorite director here.
Well, when you hear Kevin Feige is bringing the X-Men back, are we not excited?
Do you want to see a trailer first?
You want to see going to look like?
That's right. It's the same thing. So either you're honestly not understanding that, or there's some disingenuousness going on there. I'm sorry.
Well, you know what? Real quick, I want to continue. I'll let you continue your point, Asante. Good friend of the show, generous friend of the show, Rain G4 drops an outstanding $5 super chat and says, "I didn't know about Gears or Mass Effect before they dropped, and I was hyped for both."
That's right.
I mean, that's a fantastic point.
Specifically with Mass Effect, I was hyped because before that, I was all in on BioWare because of their last game that they made.
Yes,
what was it?
Yeah.
I forget the name of the game now.
The Jade Empire?
Jade Empire. I need to revisit that. It's lost its way in the modern age. It needs a remake. That game was amazing, But because of their pedigree at that time, when they said they were doing a space opera, we were there. You don't have to see a single frame, right? Because they had set their own standard. You know what to expect from them. And that is the reason why everyone should be excited. If you like a Bethesda game, right, and Fallout 76 notwithstanding, because that was a side project, as it were, if you like the mainline Fallout games, you have every reason to be excited for Starfield.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. But listen, folks, we're closing in on the 2-hour mark, and I want to thank the well over 300 people we had here. Obviously, I want to thank OBM for stepping in because we were quite a few members short. Seems like a lot of people are getting under the weather. Wandering Dutch is suffering, unfortunately, from a migraine. The medication did not kick in. And being a migraine sufferer, I understand what that's about. Light bothers you, sound bothers you, smell bothers you. So we wish him a speedy recovery. And we're going to get the full team back here next week. But I want to just say a big thank you to, again, the panel. Of course, the chat was amazing. A lot of new faces here. If you are new to the channel, please, by all means, consider subscribing. If we, entertained you enough for you to hit the subscribe button. I just dropped today X-Vlog episode number 10. Basically, it breaks down the 8 studios I'm expecting to join Xbox Game Studios, rounding that number out to 31 by the end of the year. And I break down good reasons to why that's going to happen, and the last game that they released, and why they could bring some AAA goodness to Xbox Game Pass, which is becoming a big metric. But let's do the outros, get everyone out of here, and we'll start with One Bad Mother. Obviously, brother, we know you from Xbox era. You, Jordy, John, Special Nick, and the entire team is just, man, you've really made some incredible strides, which is why you guys are past 10K. Do me a favor, brother. Sell the brand. Tell everyone about You've Got Me at Halo and where they can check that out. And, of course, where could people check out your work on Xbox era?
Yeah, well, thanks again, Boom. Really, really appreciate you having me on again today. And first, before I get to all that, I do want to thank everybody. You, Boom, and I know our panel members here, Everburn and Kay Asante, and also I've seen some people in the chat. You guys supported us on the the Kickstarter for the 20 years, celebrating 20 years of Xbox book that we kickstarted, and that went very successful, and that's on its way, and I'm confident people are going to be very excited
for that book, man. I cannot wait for that book. I'm excited for sure.
I jumped in. I dropped 130 pounds on that. Wow. It was well worth it. Yeah, I had to get in one of the top tiers because, like I said, I don't have a story to tell. I don't think I qualified to tell a story, but I just, that's amazing, and the work. I can't wait for that book.
Yeah, and I'm confident people are going to be very excited about what they get their hands on when that comes out. So just want to again thank all of you guys. That was awesome. That's the first time I've ever been associated with something like that, and that was kind of a wild ride. And appreciate all the support from everybody. If you're looking for more, I'm part of the Xbox Era staff. Generally, I write and produce content. The last couple months, it's that was a little bit down because of I also have had a real job that had a lot of hours demanded of me, but we'll be putting out a lot more content, some pieces here soon, and I like my angle is always to not just go with what I think or my opinion. I like to do a lot of research, like to look at a lot of different studies about where the industry is going. So if you're somebody that likes to really understand that where what's actually going on, check that out. Also, we have forums over there, and I do a sub show. Nick and John do a weekly Xbox Era podcast, but I am also part of a team that talks about Halo every 2 weeks, and we've been doing that pretty much since for about a year and a half, really, since about the E3, since Craig. Obviously had to celebrate him, and he's got his makeover. And with Halo, it's funny. I thought there wouldn't be enough content to keep a single game show going that frequently for that long, but it looks like there's just going to continue to be more and more to talk about there. So if you are a Halo fan, come look for us. We'll be on again next Thursday. But again, thanks, Boom. Like I said, I wasn't afraid that we're going to fill the air today. So I appreciate all the extra mic time today.
Listen, it's sometimes a smaller panel is nice. Everyone gets really to sink their teeth into the topics, and we make it work whether a big panel or small panel. But Kay Asante, by all means, brother, sell your brand. Tell everyone where you're going to be back this Saturday with your co-host Everborn Saga. A lot of people missed you this Saturday, but we knew that you had things to do. We're looking forward to the rebranded Gaming Circle podcast. Talk about that. Tell everyone where they can reach out to you on social media, but more importantly, subscribe to your YouTube channel.
So thank you so much. Before I do that, though, I should also shout out to Outbreak Podcast, whose super chat was missed, but we shall not miss his super chat.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have it, or should I read it out for you?
By all means, read it.
Outbreak Podcast drops a $2 super chat and says, Xbox needs to have Final Fantasy at some point. They need to drop that cash. Now, I know some folks out here still really want that, and that's one thing they definitely do have, a lot of cash. Hopefully, maybe we see some of that at some point.
It's funny, talking about that.
Save that cash, put it towards the Sega purchase. That's what I said.
Yeah, I would say put yes. I know people want it on Xbox, but I just don't think that listen, Final Fantasy 16 is going to be basically Final Fantasy 15 with a different number and a guy with spiky hair. That's all it's going to be. I'm sorry.
What do they call it? The boy band drive along game?
Drive along boy band. Yeah, not good.
Hey, Asante, do you see Joanna Dark's comment?
Oh yes, yes, I did. Of course I did. He's pitting us both against each other. It's what he likes to do there, Mr. Joanna.
I know he's home eating popcorn right now.
He's just sitting there enjoying himself. That's right. But no, thank you guys so much for always being in the joining us when we have these podcasts, and you guys have been. I've heard people asking me when the show is coming. I'm watching ILP people going, "Is it inappropriate to ask you when your show is coming up?" I'm like, "Yo, I did not know people really liked it like that. I really appreciate it. This is great. This is great." So yes, we will be back this Saturday with the Gaming Circle podcast. We're trying to do a little upgrades here and there. Timing is becoming a little hectic, but if we can't get them all done, you'll start seeing them trickle out little by little. But we'll be back this week. We're still working on logistics of how it will look and who will be there. But for sure, 2022, our 22 version of the Gaming Circle podcast will be back this Saturday. And before then, you know us. You find us on the Twitter streets. We cannot stop tweeting. So you follow me, I follow you back. I enjoy having those conversations on there, and it seems to keep the conversation going when we're not on the podcast. So I appreciate everybody that follows. I appreciate people that reached out with kind words about the show, asking when it's coming back. So yes, we will definitely. You'll see us. And I know that the On the Reel has some logistics they're working out as well. I'll leave Mr. Everborn to speak on that. But yes, you will see us. If nothing else, you'll see us again next week here on PTG. So thank you guys so much.
Absolutely. And Everborn Saga, by all means, brother, sell your brand. Tell everyone about your Thursday movie show. And there's been quite a bit right after Book of Boba Fett, which is pretty damn amazing. We're getting
That's
Moon Knight.
Funny. Because I hate that show, but we'll talk about that later.
Okay.
Wow.
Strong words there, Everborn.
This is why On the Reel needs to come back. No.
Well, you know what Yoda said. You know what Yoda said about hate there, Everborn.
Yes.
Don't give it
It's
to
the
hate.
path to the dark side. That's right.
At
least the suffering.
For one reason.
The dark side. No. No, On the Reel will be back. There's some retooling happening there because I'm just trying to turn the channel into something that has more evergreen content. So it's we're going to change the format of the show where we're not necessarily picking up the daily news, but we are talking about a specific film or television show and sort of dissecting it so that we can have a conversation.
Even though some of the news stories needs to be talked about. Rest in peace to Bob Saget.
Yeah,
and Sidney Poitier.
And Cindy Poitier, yeah.
Yeah.
And Betty White. Yeah, that will be back. And I'm trying to put together some creator driven content. So if you are a creator and you maybe want to make your own comic book or write your own script or make your own game, which is some of the things that I do, I want to hopefully be a source that can show you how to get your feet wet in the water and do that with the channel.
That's excellent.
So,
yeah, we love that.
And then we've got the comics coming. The Redlands Kickstarter was successful. It's great. It is being lettered as we speak, and I think, fingers crossed, I may be able to get it to everyone earlier than was promised in the Kickstarter. So that may be a good thing. Everybody might get it like a month early. And we are working on our fourth series, The Remnant. And I shared a page from that yesterday. Good.
Yeah, it looks good, dude.
And that's good. That one's going to be a big deal. So lots of things going on in the world of Everborn. So between the channel and the books coming and the books in development, and we're working on Ariel's Adventure Chapter 2 and Prince of Arcadia 5 already. Things are happening. Like I said, maybe big announcement coming soon.
Yes, looking forward to it.
And other than that, Everborn Saga everywhere. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Very active there.
Oculus,
but that's another thing. You didn't even talk about that. We got to get on Oculus because that's the move now. So, but on Oculus as well. And Xbox, PlayStation, Steam, all that jazz, and Everborn Saga on YouTube, but also everbornsaga.com. Check that out. You can see what books we have available right now, and that's where you'll be able to get all future books in the saga. And that is all I got, folks. And again, Sony can keep Final Fantasy. That's it. I'm done.
Well, listen, folks, thank you so much for hanging out. We still have 170 people here, and we're doing outros. That means you guys are really enjoying the content. Again, if you're new, consider hitting the subscribe button. We are under 700 away. We're 680 something away from 10K. We're close. Not that close, but close enough where I can actually see the lights.
One acquisition away, as I like.
Yeah, one acquisition away.
One Monday morning away.
Yeah, as Microsoft is looking, I will be acquired.
You know that movie, Any Given Sunday?
That's right. Any given Monday.
That's right. I love it. Well, listen, folks, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for supporting all of these content creators. Thank you for supporting Double Barrel Gaming. Big shout out to the super chats that came in. Those are really do power the channel. And of course, I'm going to be doing some new emojis for new channel members that will be coming. Hopefully, if you want to become a channel member, just head over to Double Barrel Gaming on YouTube and click that join button. It would be greatly appreciated because we do our giveaways based on how many channel members and how many super chats that we put away for the year. And of course, I'll close out the show with something that is important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he said, son, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.